I can still remember the candles, the smell of vanilla frosting, and the sound of my heartbeat drowning out the music. It was my birthday, and I had been keeping a secret for weeks, one that was both terrifying and beautiful. When the room quieted, I raised my glass, my hands trembling just slightly. "I have something to tell you," I said, smiling through the rush of nerves. "We're pregnant." For a moment, time stopped. Then cheers, laughter, applause. Everyone celebrated, except him. Carter wrapped an arm around me for a photo, his smile stretched too tight. When the flashes ended, he whispered, "Can we talk?" and led me toward the hallway. His voice was low, strained. "I can't do this, Lily. I'm not ready for a baby. I'm not ready for any of this." It felt like the air had been stolen from my lungs. He said he loved me, but that he had to leave. And just like that, he walked out of my birthday party. I stood there frozen, pretending the world hadn't just cracked open beneath me. Someone asked about cake. Someone laughed awkwardly. I smiled and said I needed air, though what I really needed was a time machine. My best friend Priya followed me, eyes full of fire and pity. I whispered, "He's gone." And the room went silent. That night, after everyone left, I stared at the pile of unopened gifts. The candles had melted into crooked wax figures, mocking the idea of wishes. I was pregnant, alone, humiliated. But somewhere deep inside the shock, something fierce stirred. If he wasn't ready for this life, I would be, for me and for the baby. Priya stayed with me that night. She made tea and let me cry until the sky turned gray. When words finally came back to me, I told her everything. The nausea, the test, the joy, the hope, all of it shattered in one sentence. She didn't try to fix it. She just held my hand and said, "You're stronger than you think." Maybe I didn't believe her then, but I wanted to. By morning, I was done crying. I made lists: doctor appointments, legal advice, money, rent. I called in sick to work and instead called a locksmith. If Carter could walk out that easily, he didn't deserve a key to my home. Every practical step felt like a heartbeat returning. A few days later, I found what I already suspected: texts, hotel receipts, names that weren't mine. Camille, the woman who had been laughing at my table the night of the party. I didn't scream. I didn't call him. I just saved everything. Screenshots, dates, facts. Grief became data, and data became strength. When my lawyer picked up the phone, her voice sounded like order in the middle of chaos. I asked about leases, bank accounts, tenant rights. She said, "You're doing the right thing." Maybe I was. Or maybe I was just trying to stay upright. Either way, it was a start. That night, I wrote a promise on a sticky note and put it on the mirror. Do not chase what walked away. Every morning, I read it out loud. And every morning, it felt a little truer. The first text came 3 days later. "I'll be there at 7 to get my stuff. Don't be home." I typed back one word: no. By 6:30, Priya and a few friends were already at my apartment. Mateo, tall and silent, stood near the door like a bodyguard. When Carter walked in, his expression flickered between arrogance and guilt. He asked, "What is this?" I said, "Boundaries." He left with one suitcase, clothes, a toothbrush, and the last of my pity. He muttered something about me always needing an audience. I wanted to say, "You ended us in front of one," but instead, I just closed the door and locked it. Later, when the adrenaline faded, the sadness hit like a second wave. Not for him, but for the future I'd already started building in my head. The nursery I'd imagined, the road trips we'd talked about, the life that now existed only in maybes. Priya stayed that night too, and when I finally fell asleep, I dreamed of quiet. Not happiness yet, just quiet. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and new beginnings. 10 weeks, the nurse said with a smile that almost broke me. 10 weeks of a life I'd already fallen in love with. When I heard the tiny heartbeat, something inside me clicked back into place. I wasn't alone. Not really. That afternoon, I walked past a baby boutique and felt my throat tighten. Everything was so small, so fragile, so hopeful. I pressed a hand to my stomach and whispered, "We're going to be okay." It didn't feel like a lie. It felt like a decision. Later that night, I opened a folder on my laptop labeled Facts. Inside were screenshots, dates, charges, evidence of the man I used to trust. I didn't look out of revenge, but clarity. If I ever doubted myself again, I'd have proof that walking away was survival. I closed the laptop and breathed easier. It started with texts, then voicemails. "Lily, I'm sorry. Please let me explain. I made a mistake." Then, one night, pounding on my door. "Lily, please just talk to me." His voice was slurred, desperate. Through the door, I said, "Go home, Carter. You're drunk." He sobbed something about not being ready, about wanting to fix it now. I pressed my forehead against the door and whispered, "It's too late." He begged to see me, to see the baby. I told him yes, but not like this. Not tonight. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the cafe on Main. Sober. Alone. He agreed. Or maybe he just ran out of words. When his footsteps faded, I finally exhaled. He was there before me. Same clothes from the night before, but his eyes were clearer. He started talking before I even sat down, apologies tumbling over each other like broken glass. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't cry. When he finally ran out of words, I asked one question. "What do you want, Carter?" He said he wanted to be involved, to do the right thing, maybe even to try again. I laughed, not cruelly, but quietly. "You weren't ready for me," I said, "but I'm ready for myself now." Then I slid a folder across the table. Ultrasound, due date, and a custody draft. He looked at it like it was fire. "You already talked to a lawyer?" he asked. "Yes," I said, "because I don't make decisions drunk." He looked small, like a man seeing the end of his own illusion. I stood up and said, "This isn't revenge, it's responsibility." Weeks passed. I worked, ate, slept, and planned a future that didn't include him. Sometimes he texted, sometimes he didn't. I answered only about the baby, short, clear, calm. Little by little, I started to feel like me again. The nausea eased. The fear didn't own me anymore. I bought a second-hand crib and painted it white. Priya helped me set it up, and we laughed until our arms ached. The nursery wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Our baby's first home, built from survival and stubborn love. Then came the rumors. Carter and Camille were over. Apparently, he'd lost his job too. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But pity was a luxury I couldn't afford. When he texted asking to talk again, I said no. Not because I was angry, but because I was done. I didn't owe him access to my peace. And for the first time in months, that peace was finally mine. I built a routine that didn't ask permission from my past. Morning stretches, oatmeal, vitamins, a walk if Seattle behaved. I memorized the bus schedule to my clinic by heart. I learned the names of nurses who smiled with their eyes. I wrote to the baby every night like a promise kept. Carter found part-time work and sent the first payment. He enrolled in a parenting class and actually showed up. He stopped texting at midnight and started asking, "Is now okay?" Boundaries changed both of us in slow, useful ways. I noticed it and refused to narrate hope out loud. I bought a plain journal and turned it into a map. Budget pages, appointment notes, lists that steadied me. A page titled, "When I Forget, Remember This." Underneath I wrote, "I will not apologize for surviving." Then I slept through the night for the first time in months. Priya came with soup and laughter that sounded like home. We folded tiny clothes and argued about stroller colors. She kept saying, "You are allowed to be happy now." I tried the sentence on and it almost fit. Grief loosened its laces and let my feet breathe. The baby kicked during a thunderstorm over the sound. I pressed my palm to the little wave of becoming. "I'm learning us," I whispered into the quiet room. The window fogged with our warm, private weather. I felt ready, not perfect, but truthfully ready. Labor began like a rumor that refused to hush. A tug, a breath, a clock pretending to be patient. Priya timed contractions and rubbed circles on my back. The hospital lights were too honest, but also kind. I held onto the bed and myself at the same time. Carter arrived with a teddy bear the size of a chair. I laughed between contractions because absurd is mercy. He asked if I needed anything and stayed in the corner. I asked for water, silence, and my own courage. He gave me 2 out of 3, and I forgave the rest. Hours stacked on hours until I became a doorway. I inhaled terror and exhaled 1,000 small prayers. Priya said, "You're doing it," and I believed her. The nurse said, "One more push," and I became thunder. Then the room changed shape, and time let go. They placed Maya on my chest, warm as sunrise. Her cry sounded like a key turning in a lock. I cried too, from somewhere past language and fear. Carter cried the awkward tears men hide from themselves. The world shrank to skin, breath, and relief. That first night was a collage of small miracles. Fingers like commas, pausing on my collarbone. A heartbeat heavy as truth against my ribs. Priya slept in the chair and kept waking to check me. I closed my eyes and finally believed in morning. Home smelled like lavender cleaner and new beginnings. My mom reorganized the kitchen and I let her. We learned the choreography of diapers and naps. I worked remote during Maya's softer hours. Pay wasn't magic. Peace was priceless enough. The landlord let me renew the lease in my name. Paperwork felt like a door I held open myself. I painted the living room a forgiving sage. The crib faced the window, a small boat seeking light. I taped a star chart above the dresser for dreaming. Carter started visiting on Tuesdays and Saturdays. He texted before coming and left on time. He changed diapers like a student memorizing a poem. He asked where to put the bottles and I showed him. We learned to be decent strangers in the same room. One afternoon I boxed the last of his old shirts. I kept the journal, the ultrasound, the hospital tag. I put the breakup night in the memory box too. Not burning, just archived, like a lesson finally finished. My shoulders dropped an inch and stayed there. At bedtime I told Maya about good choices, about women who stay soft and keep their edges, about storms that teach you the architecture of yourself. She yawned like a tiny queen bored of sermons. I kissed her hair and thanked the ordinary light. Noah started as a name on my delivery notifications. He carried the heavy water in without theater. He left sticky notes with practical magic and bad jokes. I laughed against my will, which is my favorite kind. Kindness arrived in paper bags and stayed a minute. We talked about compost and small mercies in school. He said his niece worshipped blueberries in puddles. He asked before stepping past the doorway every time. Respect feels like air after you've lived underwater. I saved his number under groceries and smiled anyway. Carter saw Noah leaving once and went quiet. He asked who that was and I said, "A helper." He nodded like a man reading a map slowly. We both understood the lines we would not cross. This house is a boundary and a trust. Later, Noah texted a list of swaddles that actually work. He added a joke about sleep being a rumor. I typed thank you and didn't add a heart. Some tenderness is better when it doesn't rush. Some futures are careful on purpose. That night I stood in the doorway and watched them. Maya slept. Seattle sighed. The fridge hummed low. I realized I wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. My life fit like a coat broken in by weather. Warm, honest, and exactly my size. Progress showed up late and rang the bell twice. Carter missed a visit and owned it without drama. He started therapy and stopped mocking the word. He sent articles about colic and asked questions. I answered with facts and small, real thanks. We argued once about nap schedules and screens. We solved it with a timer and the pediatrician's note. No name-calling, no old ghosts invited to dinner. Maya watched us choose calm over victory. I was proud of us like a secret. On my next birthday, we kept it tiny and good. Priya brought cake and Mateo brought jokes. Carter dropped a bracelet with Maya's birthstone. He didn't linger. I didn't ask him to stay. Kindness can be brief and still be true. After they left, I washed dishes in quiet light. I remembered the other birthday like a caution sign. I touched the memory box and it didn't sting. Pain had turned into instruction behind my back. I exhaled a year I didn't owe anyone. Before bed, I wrote a page titled Inventory. What I lost, illusions, a future that wasn't mine. What I kept, my name, my voice, my daughter. What I gained, peace that fits in the dark. I fell asleep mid-sentence and didn't mind. I used to think healing sounded like applause. Now it sounds like a baby monitor and rain. Carter texts photos from the park on Saturdays. Maya's laugh breaks open the afternoon like sugar. This is a life, not a performance anymore. Sometimes he looks around my apartment and swallows. Regret has a posture I recognize and release. He thanks me for the schedule and I nod back. We are not we, and that is a kindness. 2 grown-ups, 1 child, 0 lies. After bedtime, I open the journal and tell the truth. I forgave you, and I chose me. I write slow. Love that breaks me isn't home, even if it knocks. Peace and love don't always share an address. The page holds steady like a handrail in winter. I stand at the window and watch the city breathe. Headlights blur, clouds pass, sirens choose other streets. Somewhere he is learning the father he can be. Here, I am the mother I promised every night. We meet at the child and leave each other there. I turn off the lamp and the room softens. Maya sighs, a tiny ship in a safe harbor. I touch the door frame like it's a metal, not a wall. I smile because I didn't get the ending I wanted. I smile because I became the woman who didn't need it.